plug in the computer and your iPhone has a webpage, and it's like perfect quality. I'd do that if I had an iPhone. I might get an iPhone as well.
I just got the
Wow.
I had a Texas solid.
War Eagle. Wow, what an awesome day today. It's as we come here to celebrate one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and our guy, Frank Thomas. My name is Tim Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of the Tigers Unlimited Foundation. And on behalf of Auburn Athletics and Tigers Unlimited, we welcome you. We've got so many special guests here today. I really can't single anybody out, but we're very happy, of course, to have Frank and his beautiful family and so many friends, many of his friends that I got to be part of back in the years when they played football and baseball players. You know, I'll tell you, think of seeing Lee Mark Sellers here, who was a tight end and one of Frank's roommates. When I came to Auburn as a graduate assistant coach in February of 1988, I didn't know who Frank was. I really didn't know many names of the players, but I remember one of the first or second staff meetings I was in, and there was some pretty heated conversation with some assistant coaches when we were talking about roster about Frank Thomas. And I'm kind of thinking, who's Frank Thomas? And Pat Sullivan and Blakeney and someone were talking to Coach Dye about, you know, like this guy can be an All-American, a first-rounder, tight end football player, and Coach Dye listens. Coach Dye, and Hal will fill in later on, but Coach Dye's listening and to what all they had to say, and he said, yeah, well, he said, here's the deal. I've watched him, and Hal has said he can be a first-round baseball player, and so he's going to be a baseball player, and he's going to be on a football scholarship, and that's the way it's going to be. And nothing else was ever said. Nothing else was ever said, and every time, you know, Frank did something in baseball at the football staff meeting the next morning, Coach Dye would say, hey, y'all see what Frank did last night? So Coach Dye was so proud of Frank. And the point is, you know, Frank is being honored today by what he's done in baseball, but Coach Dye and our football coaches thought he would also have had the ability to be honored as a football player. Today we're honoring him as baseball, but he was so good, he could have been honored as football too. So, you know, statues are something that our administration, our Board of Trustees has been just very, very conservative and selective with statues that we put on this campus. And so what we're doing today is something that is not taken lightly. It is for someone who has made an incredible impact on this university, which Frank has. And when you add him to the other statues that are up, we're incredibly fortunate at Auburn. I think sometimes we take it for granted, but to have these legends that we have that are at the absolute top of their sport, and on top of that, they represent Auburn with class, and they're great people. So, we've got several guys today that have some things to say about Frank, and at this time, I would like to invite our 21st president, Chris Roberts, who did amazing work in the College of Engineering and now as the leader of our university. We'll have his official installation later this week. Dr. Chris Roberts.
War Eagle. I am so excited to be here today, and we're also thrilled here at Auburn to be holding this special day. Everybody that's here, we're here to celebrate an incredible person. And Frank, we want you to know that we're all here because we're so proud of you. On behalf of Auburn University, I want to tell you that we're just so proud of you. Now, what you don't know is that when I was a PhD student at the University of Notre Dame, I would scrape together every penny I had until I had enough money for a ticket on the South Shore train to to take it in, to get off the train a couple of blocks from Comiskey Park in order to go watch you play. And truth be told, Frank Thomas was the standard bearer for me when it came to Auburn University. You were the person that kind of put in my mind that Auburn stood for excellence. And so when I was leaving my PhD, Auburn was on my list, in part because I was so impressed with you. And so I just want to tell you how honored I am to be here today, being able to celebrate with everybody here that recognizes that you are one of the true standard bearers at Auburn University. We're proud to be here today. Where are you?
So at this time, I'd like to introduce a guy that knows a lot about baseball and a lot about Frank Thomas. He actually had the opportunity to play against Frank years ago in college. He also, I think, is the only person in the SEC to have been to the World Series as a player, as a head coach, and as an athletic director. And so we're extremely fortunate that Chris Roberts hired this next guy last fall. That there's something about, and I remember working with Hal. I don't know what it is about baseball coaches, but there's something that they have that really prepares them to be unbelievable administrators and athletic directors. And I can promise you, Auburn is incredibly fortunate to have this guy as our athletic director, John.
Coach Baird, he's saying there's something that we had. In actuality, it's what we didn't have, which is scholarship aid as baseball coaches. Hey, War Eagle. Good morning and welcome to this special event. We appreciate everybody adjusting to this inclement weather. Frank, we apologize, man. We ordered up 65 or 70 and sunny and we didn't get it. We want to thank our esteemed guests, our former players, coaches, and staff members, and Auburn baseball enthusiasts for being here today. Among these, I want to thank and I want to recognize Coach Hal Baird, one of the all-time greats, a man who means so much to so many. Coach Baird, every time I bring up your name to one of your former players, it's the same response. It's the same response. There's love, a high level of respect, an homage to your leadership, wisdom, and your care. And I personally want to thank you, Coach Baird. I know you will hear from Coach Baird in just a minute, but I would love it if everybody gave Coach Baird a round of applause. Also want to recognize Coach Butch Thompson, who obviously I know very well. He had to endure me for 7 years at Mississippi State, but he's done a tremendous job with this Auburn baseball program, and he was instrumental in this day coming to fruition. So I'd love it if we gave Coach Thompson a hand as well. Who are we here to honor today? Well, I might be the only person here who had to endure Frank Thomas wearing an opposing college uniform. Not fun. I remember going through our scouting reports for Frank Thomas when I was playing baseball at Mississippi State, and it's, if you throw it out of the zone, he ain't swinging. If you throw it in the zone, he's hitting it somewhere real hard, and you're just hoping it stays in the ballpark. One of his home runs actually ended up in Sports Illustrated as one of the farthest home runs ever hit in college baseball at Mississippi State. I've never heard 10,000 people that quiet in my entire existence in the state of Mississippi. But for those who are not old enough to remember Frank Thomas during his college days, you really missed out. For those who were privileged enough to witness his skills on the diamond, well, we got to witness a generational level of excellence that rarely exists in college athletics. You will hear, or you've already heard, about the statistical records, of which there are many, in Frank Thomas's illustrious career. Frank was an All-American. He won 2 SEC batting titles. He was a 2-time Major League Baseball MVP. He won 4 Silver Slugger awards, an American League batting title, and of course you all know that Frank is the only SEC ever enshrined in Cooperstown. But as I prepared to speak today, it dawned on me that perhaps the best way to describe Frank's greatness is this. Only 4 players in Major League Baseball history, 4 players have hit 500 home runs, coupled with 1,600 walks and a career batting average of 300 or higher. 4 people have reached this lofty position in baseball history. To put this in further perspective, only 12 people have ever walked on the moon. So in my opinion, in so many ways, Frank, you're our Neil Armstrong. Frank, thank you for going to the moon, and thank you for taking Auburn University with you. War Eagle.
Thank you, John. At this time, as John recognized Coach Baird, you know, when I got here, and Frank was playing in the 80s, we had metal bleachers and not a lot out there for baseball facility. And under Hal's guidance and leadership, we made some major improvements and took our teams to the World Series in '94 and '97. You know, Hal is in, I don't know how many Hall of Fames, from East Carolina to the Alabama Hall of Fame to the American Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Now, it didn't hurt him getting there with guys like Frank and Tim Hudson and Greg Olson and some others that are here today. But Hal was just an incredible leader. I can remember when Coach Guy was the head football coach and the athletic director, Hal was the coach that he was probably closest to, had the most confidence in, had great respect for him, and they had a great relationship. And in Hal's last year, he provided leadership for the entire athletic department, and it was a pleasure to get to work under him. He did a magnificent job for us as a coach and administrator, Coach Baird.
Thanks a lot, Tim. Excuse me. Most of my speech is gone now, thanks to John and to Tim. So I'll try to wing it here for just a little bit. I can't tell you how happy I am to see this wonderful crowd. It's just unbelievable. I was concerned with the weather that we may not get to turn out hopeful, but it was just wonderful. And in particular, seeing so many former players. I mean, my mind goes in a lot of different directions. If I look in this direction and see players, and in this direction and see players, a lot of whom Butch could use right now. And you're like, no, that's not good. That's just saying that if you got Tim Hudson and Greg Olson and folks like that hanging around, that's pretty darn good. I remember when in fact, Tim mentioned the story about Coach Guy and Frank's football and baseball. Well, when I first saw Frank, he was in high school, but he was a football recruit, and as the rules dictated in those days, if a player played 2 sports, and one was football or basketball, then that needed to be the scholarship. They were the head count sports. And so they did the primary recruiting, but everybody knew who Frank was. And my big concern was that we could find 30 scouts stupid enough not to draft him in high school, because I was afraid we'd never get him if he showed up. And but I really, it's funny when Tim mentioned that, I thought about it because it was like yesterday. This whole thing is like yesterday in my mind, and 35 years ago, which is an interesting number because that was his jersey number. But I wanted to reflect back 9 years ago when Frank was the first Auburn and SEC player inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. And Janie and I were unable to attend, which was a terrible disappointment for us. But we watched every second on TV. And the TV announcers did a really wonderful job. They, as Frank was being announced and introduced, they had graphics on the board of all the statistics that Frank was at the all-time high in. And I fashioned myself as a Frank Thomas aficionado. I thought I knew what his career had been like. But when they started talking about the traditional baseball values, not metrics and not analytics, but home runs and RBIs and on-base percentage and all of that, they mentioned the names that were in those various categories. And for someone my age, it was amazing because we were talking about Baird, and we were talking about Ted Williams, and we were talking about Henry Aaron, and we were talking about Mel Ott, and we were talking about Mickey Mantle. And all of those greats were in one category or two. And by the time it was over with, I told Jamie, I said, Jamie, I really believe we can make a compelling argument that Frank was not only the most productive offensive player in history, he was the most well-rounded, he was the only one that were in all of the categories. And that is a mouthful. I mean, that is really a mouthful when you say something like that. And John touched on the numbers, and I firmly believe that. But then I went back a few years, and I thought about Frank as he was becoming the big hurt in his earlier days in Major Leagues. And he took Major League Baseball by storm. It was like a media blitz. And we were sort of on the tail end of that because every major outlet in the country, be it Baseball America or Sports Illustrated or all of them, they were just in a hurry to find out what this guy was about. And so they were calling, and I remember specifically, they all had their little slants on what the story was going to be. But there was one question that was common to every one of them, and that was, as the coach at Auburn, was there an at-bat? Was there a game? Was there a series? Was there an aha moment where you stood back and just went, holy cow, I'm in the presence of something great here? And to their dismay, I said, no, it wasn't that way. Frank Thomas came from a terrific baseball program at Columbus High School with one of the finest baseball men I've ever met, Bobby Howard. And so he was simply great the day he walked on this campus, and he was great the day he left. Now, Steve Renfro doesn't like it when I say that because that sort of eliminates the coaching development aspect of the player once he gets here. But the development aspect of Frank was getting into the ballpark on time. That was one thing we really had to worry about very much. Get him to the bus on time. I mean, he was late for an Ole Miss trip, and I'll never forget it. But so all of these folks had come and done their stories, and there was one that we got a little bit later on, and it was USA Today. And that was they had a really terrific sports section, and the sports editor of USA Today was a gentleman by the name of Henry Freeman. Well, Henry Freeman, we have forgiven him this, but he was a graduate of the University of Georgia, as was his mom and father. But his mom, Helen, used to tell me all the time that it's okay because my uncle was a president of Auburn University at one point, and when you go to Sanford Hall, you need to go in there and say hello to him. His picture was on the wall with all the other presidents. She didn't tell me his name, so I never really got a chance to do that. But the question was, and by the way, when USA Today called, Henry himself called me. Well, he was way beyond that at that point. He was the original format director of USA Today Sports, and he had advanced very highly in the profession. And so on personal interest stories like this, he would just assign those things out. But on this particular one, he did it himself. Well, the reason was we were high school football teammates at Prince George High School in Virginia. In fact, they lived right across the street from Jamie, and I would see him at Toddy Hour every once in a while. And so anyway, Henry said, look, I've got all the biographical information I need on Frank Thomas. In fact, I've got way more than I need. I can't make the story. But he said, but I do want one take. I want to know from a coach's standpoint what you think and remember about Frank. And I said, you're not going to like it. And he said, well, tell me anyway. And I said, Frank Thomas played on Auburn University's 95th, 96th, and 97th edition of the baseball team. We started baseball here in 1892, the same year football started. There was a pause in 1944 and 1945 for obvious reasons. We played all the way through World War I, but in World War II we took a break. So those were the teams Frank played on. And from the head coach's position, and I know Butch can appreciate this, my thinking was those were the three winningest teams in Auburn's 95-year history consecutively. Frank's freshman year in 1987, we went 42-18. It was the first Auburn team ever to win 40 games. He was the best player on a really good team with other good players, many of whom are sitting over there right now. And we were 18-9 in the SEC. We missed the championship by half a game to Henry's alma mater, Georgia, who was 18-8, who was playing LSU on a Sunday afternoon, getting ready to face Russ Springer. And they had gotten boat raced twice by LSU, so we were feeling pretty good about getting part of that championship. But they didn't play because the game got rained out. But that was Frank's first year. Frank's second year, his sophomore year, we were in first place going into week 7. There were only 9 weeks and 10 teams in the league. Everybody played everybody. I always thought that was the best format the SEC ever had because everybody played everybody. So we had some enterprising young lady on campus who decided that mononucleosis should absolutely decimate our ball club for 2 weeks. If I ever found her, I would probably not be here today. Because it was never the 24th and 25th player that got sick. It was always the Franks and the Greg Olsons and the guys that... So we dropped from first place to third place in those 2 weeks, and we got our guys back on the last weekend. We went to Baton Rouge, swept LSU, and that was only Skip Burton's only sweep in conference play in his entire time there. Frank had a double off Ben McDonald in the 10th inning of the 3rd game to give us the sweep. I didn't see it. I had been ejected 2 innings early. It's in the stands. And he hit it off Ben McDonald, who had thrown a complete game the day before. Now, this is a different era, Butch. Can't do that. With Ben had thrown a complete game on Saturday. Frank took him off the right center field wall, and we swept LSU. That team finished 39-14 in the regular season. 3rd place in the SEC, an RPI of 7, and did not get a chance to play in the national tournament. Again, things are a little different now. Those 2 teams in 87 and 88 were national championship caliber teams because of Frank and because of the players who were on that team that were also very, very good. And that's just the way it was. But we go to 89, Frank's draft year. We had some holes to fill, and he filled most of them. And we started a little slow, but we ended up winning the SEC championship in Gainesville, Florida, in 89. And Frank hit a home run early in the game, and we won that game. Tommy Youngblood and Mark Fuller made that stand up, and we won 2-1 and won the championship. So when I think about Frank, that's kind of what goes through my mind, because there are very few things about Frank's game that hadn't already been well documented by everybody, but I actually thought there was something that was undervalued, and that was his competitive spirit and his will to win. I often said about Frank in private, not in public. In private, I would say if Frank hit a double in the gap, by the time he got to second base, he knew what his batting average was. But he also knew how many runs Auburn had, and that was more important to him. And winning was very, very important to him. And when he was at Auburn, we won. And I think about that often. Tim, you took all this away from me on the Coach Dye story, but there was no way I was going to leave this podium. Am I ready for the hook, Butch? Can I have it all? Jamie was giving me the hook. The last few years we had Coach Dye. He had a radio show that he ran out of his farm, and I would go out every year, once or twice, to be a guest on the show. And I always knew if the producer called, that meant that you're going to be here at this time, you're going to do a little spot, and we'll have you back in Auburn in 20, 25 minutes. But if Coach Dye called, that meant he wanted to visit. And toward the last years of his life, he really enjoyed reminiscing about many of you who are here today. And some of the stories got redundant, but I never got tired of them. But when I think, and I believe this was the last time that we actually did this, but we were sitting out on the porch at his lake, And I think we had an adult beverage, maybe 2. But he was telling stories that we had heard before. And we mostly were around about football and the new coach. But all of a sudden, the conversation would always wind around to Bo and to Frank. It just always seemed to do that. But on this one day, he said, you know what the best thing about coaching Bo was? And I knew it was a rhetorical question, but instead of saying, well, yeah, I coached him 2 years too, I would never be insolent to that great man. And he said, the greatest thing about coaching Bo Jackson was that he was so good and so generational that all of the other great players, and if you're fortunate enough to go to Auburn, you're going to coach great players. And he said, but everybody sort of knew it, so nobody was offended if somebody said, hey, Tracy Rocker, other than Bo, you were probably the best player who ever played here. I mean, and it didn't really offend anybody. And then he took a break and he said, you know, like Frank is for you. And, uh-oh. But anyway, he also told a story about the one that Tim talked about. He said, you know, in the 80s, we were tight in university. And he said, we had Ed West, and we had Ron Middleton, and we had Walter Reeves, and we had Lee Mark Sellers, and we had Jeff Parks. And he said, Frank could have been better than all of them had he chosen to be just football. And he said, but he made the right decision. He made the right decision. And I never really stopped thinking about that, because I can't really tell you how involved that transition was with Big Frank. Frank's a big, strong, fast man. We called his father Big Frank, if that gives you any kind of idea on context. But it was really amazing. I recall a conversation where Coach Guy called me one day, and it was probably after one of those meetings Tim was talking about, but he said, in Coach Guy's inimitable way, like a 5-word conversation, can Frank take care of his family in baseball? Yes. And he said, that's it. Phone went down, that was the end of the conversation. And so, and so the transition after Frank's injury came to us, and the rest of that is history. And there's no way, I'm not going to talk about numbers because they're out there. I mean, the things are out there about numbers. But Frank's competitive drive and his will to win and to be a part of the winning thing was something I always thought was undervalued a little bit. I really did think that. And I think about a million things. I think about his pregame ritual that he designed as a sophomore, where he took small little tape balls from athletic tape and would have a manager take them down in the bullpen and throw them at him as hard as they could. And that prepared him for, that was his preparation. Another thing was, Frank Thomas's experience in the on-deck circles for a baseball person is just something you'll never forget. Heaven help us if the guy before him had a 6-pitch at bat, because every pitch Frank got closer to the batter's circle, closer to the batter, and he would time himself in sync with the pitcher who was in the game, and he would create an angle where he could see what that guy was throwing. He was also like a human radar gun. We had this little thing going where Frank would bet me, no money, just a bet, on he could tell the velocity that a guy would be throwing. And I only remember one time in 3 years where he was off just a little bit. We were playing Vanderbilt. They had a basketball player who was about 6'9", Frank. You may or may not remember him. I think his last name was Adams. Janie always gets after me when I remember these things because she says I can't remember her birthday. But Frank thought that guy was throwing about 95, and actually he was just so tall, and so he looked like he was just kind of handing it to the catcher. It was probably 91, but that's about the only time. His mind worked in a way that no young baseball hitter I had ever seen. The body, the athleticism, the eye hand, the bat skills, all of those things were just, Janie could have scouted. But the other things, the mental part, sorry to hand you, Janie, but those parts of the game were just otherworldly to me at that age. I could stand here forever telling anecdotes, but we need to hear from do. I promise. But I wanted to acknowledge the fact that all of these former players and Frank's teammates are here. It's a living tribute to you, Frank. And we have a couple guys here who made the trek from Omaha, Nebraska. Clark Preble and Joe Siwa. And Omaha, Nebraska has been very good to this program. Greg Olson, one of our greatest ever, was from Omaha, and Clark Preble was all conference, and Joe Siwa was a terrific. And every guy we had from Omaha was just terrific. And thanks to Coach Thompson, Omaha has been reintroduced to us in the last couple of years. We like that pilgrimage to the Midwest. We've gotten to enjoy that. Thank you for that. But the last thing I'll say is that, Frank, you have had every accolade, every honor, everything. Oh, I'm sorry, I have to go backtrack. I'm sorry, I'll go back to that to finish, because that's my last line. But I did want to recognize John. He was very kind to recognize me. I didn't know if you all knew what a good player he was. I also think he has a special affinity for this ballpark because we never got him out in that ballpark in the 2 years, so he could really hit. We tried to hit him. We tried to knock him down. We tried to bruise him a little bit. It never worked. And he became, of course, a fine coach at Kentucky and Mississippi State, and I never stopped before that at Missouri and Northwestern State. But I am so happy you're here. And the other thing I wanted to say was Tim Vines, our esteemed member of the University Board of Trustees, is, in my 40 years here, my favorite one of all time. I wouldn't say that if I was still working here, but I can say it now. He had a better fastball than Bobby Lowry had. Much better. And there was only one other trustee that could hit as well as Tim, and that was Quentin Riggins, and it was a different way. Quentin, don't get mad at me for favoring Tim's fastball. So I'm an old man, and I'm starting to fade a little bit here, so I'm going to stop. I have been trying this new product that's Jamie likes it too.
Thank you, Coach. Butch, I'm sorry, you're going to have to follow that. Our head baseball coach, Butch Thompson, has done something that hasn't been done before. In 2 of the last 3 postseasons, he's taken us to Omaha, to the World Series. And there's so many more things going on with Butch since he's come back to Auburn other than recruiting and coaching these baseball players. But his vision for this program, and with his vision, and now with John coming on board, our baseball program, I mean, I'm just so excited to see where we're going to be in the next few years. Our Board of Trustees has approved us making a $30 million investment into our facility. And that's with Butch's vision, and so we're just so fortunate to have Butch as our head baseball coach.
You're right, Tim, I have no words. Unbelievable. I'm just thankful to get an opportunity to stand before you as the current head baseball coach, to get to scan this room and see how much this program is cared for, to see the richness of this program. So that's my opportunity and blessing I get today, for sure. This was a piece, being an old history major myself, personally in college, of like thinking of what's the one thing of us starting to tell the story of Auburn baseball and being here. What's the biggest? And it didn't take long to figure out that we, the Auburn Tigers, the only team in the SEC to have a Hall of Fame member and be the only one. That's really the bottom line of the journey. And this day is significant. To not say this day is not a very special day to be the head baseball coach would be an understatement. Frank, you've been amazing this week, and you said thank you, and I just shoved them all back to you. But I'll make it a deal. Every time we see each other, we can give a good thank you. That's what makes this very special. Our landscape is forever changed and enriched. Auburn's University. If I was 1856 Auburn University and I could put the hat on and I could talk, and what graces our campus now that are about to be unveiled, that would be a thank you. That would be a big one. It makes greatness possible. I get to represent an amazing group of student athletes that are in the room, an amazing coaching staff, and an athletic department of people that work to try to make our program better every day. The players, the former players that have been mentioned as I scan, there's a couple that I even coached in here. That's pretty cool to look around and see some of these guys and the friends and these men, how you supported the program. To get to a day like this marks growth, exponential growth, and I know the best is yet to come. John mentioned the moon. I met Jim Voss. Jim Voss went to Auburn. It's the longest spacewalk in history of NASA. We've got a guy. He makes that possible. Ed Yielding, that SR-71, that Blackbird, right? Transcontinental flight, just over an hour, across the whole country. He was born in the infirmary at Auburn University. 2,190 miles per hour, he flew that Blackbird. Turned it around, landed it in Washington, D.C., forever in the Smithsonian. Our players, through their highest of highs of Omaha and through their grind of a grind of tough days, have examples. Frank, you're another example for us all, for our university, for our student athletes, for our future generations. It's incredible. In the fall, Frank gave me an opportunity to come up to the Field of Dreams, where he's part of bringing that unbelievable Major League Baseball game to a cornfield. Literally, parked in a cornfield, was on the movie set, felt like a 12-year-old boy that loved baseball my whole life, walked through a cornfield to get entrance into the ball game. I'll never forget it. Thank you for that invitation. Thank you for that blessing. And yes, Frank, if we build it, they will come. Right? They might even start at Buc-ee's now and get a barbecue. They'll be coming from I-85. And they don't even know what they're doing. They're just going to turn in. They're going to come down Donahue. And they're going to take a picture. And they might be here for a million different reasons at Auburn. All these different things may have brought them to town, but they will land at Plainsman Park. They will land on that statue. And may we forever aim as high as we possibly can. And it's not just for Auburn University. It's to be lifted up for our entire league. This is for baseball in our region and the best amateur baseball in the world, which is the SEC. This is a beacon. This is a light for not only our university and Lee County and our state, but for our entire conference, the best amateur baseball in the world. So, brother, I appreciate you. The one thing that I think I noticed that I would leave you with, I cannot compete with Coach. I would leave you with, with your children. You've remarked several times. They get to see Columbus, Georgia, where you're from. They get to see the specialness of Auburn University. And I know that lands on you well, and I want you to know it meant a lot to your dad, for you guys to be here and share in that this weekend. This is an amazing place. And today is absolutely another example of that Auburn spirit. For you. Thank you.
At this time, our next speaker is coming to represent the Board of Trustees, but he's also representing all former baseball lettermen. You know, Tim was a teammate of Frank's. They kind of went different directions. Frank went the Baseball Hall of Fame route. Tim's gone the Businessman Hall of Fame route as he was named the CEO and president of Blue Cross Blue Shield back in 2018. So we're incredibly proud of Tim. He came on the Board of Trustees in 2021. So coming to represent our Board of Trustees and our former baseball players, Tim Lyons.
Thank you, Tim, and War Eagle. It is truly a privilege for me to be here on this very, very special occasion for Frank. On behalf of Auburn University, on behalf of President Roberts, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, it is an honor and a privilege for us to recognize you today, Frank, for the contributions, and there are many, that you have made to Auburn University and Auburn athletics. Remembering and honoring the past is very important for recognition in the future. And what you have done down through the years has been truly amazing in terms of your representation of Auburn University, not only while you were here, but as you have left and gone on to bigger and greater things. Just the way you have carried yourself, conducted yourself, have made all of us at Auburn University very, very proud. I will say my official words and I'll give just a short story. Having a statue placed at Auburn University on the campus is one of the highest honors bestowed by the university. And I can think of no one more deserving than Frank Thomas to represent Auburn baseball. So Frank, congratulations on this recognition. Being a walk-on baseball player from Lafayette, Alabama, and most of our news outlets either came from Montgomery or Columbus. So all of the news stories that we would get in my little small town either came from Montgomery or Columbus. And being here when Frank, to talk about what Coach Baird said, when Frank walked on campus, everybody knew who Frank was. Frank may not remember this, but we had a conversation one day and we were talking about state championship. And I said, you pretty much single-handed, I know there are 9 players on the field. I said, you pretty much single-handedly won that state championship for your team. And Frank, in the most humblest of ways, said, I think I did. But I will tell you, just an amazing player, hit for power, hit for average. As said earlier, if the ball was out of the zone, he would take a walk. Incredible. You knew immediately when Frank came out on the baseball diamond that he was destined for greatness. So Frank, we are all proud of you. We're proud of your accomplishments, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees, we could not be bestowing this honor on anyone more deserving than you. Now I'll end with this. I know there's been a debate down through the years of who's number 1 and who's number 2 and who's number 3. Is Charles number 1? Is Bo number 1? And the like. But I will say on this day, Frank, in our hearts and on this day, you are the absolute number 1. Please do not repeat that for Bo. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, that's going to bring some good conversation with those 3 for sure. Thank you, Tim. So without further ado, our Hall of Famer, our legend, our pride, the Big Hurt, Frank Thomas.
Yes, I am 54 years old now, and I wear glasses. Before I get started, I'm gonna go off script a little bit. All of my ex-teammates, I'd like all of you to stand. Football, baseball, I want all you guys to stand. I just want to say thank you guys for everything. You've meant a lot to me in my life, my growth, everything. And I'm so proud to have so many of you present today because, you know, you think about something like this that's happened so long in my life that I've had a lot of accomplishments, but a lot of things go on, but to see you guys back, it means a lot. And I know it's been hard to connect the last 48 hours, to have a beer, to sit down and talk. I have with a few of you guys. Hopefully we can do it after this thing today, okay? I owe you one beer, just one. Because bouncing back is hard nowadays. I know you, when I was younger, I could go with the best of them, but now, you know, take it easy. So let me get back on script. Bear with me. I just want to say, I'm so humbled and grateful and thankful for this distinct honor. And not bragging here, but having 2 statues at 2 stadiums recognizing my college and pro career means the world to me. It just blows me away. I never imagined any of this when I started chasing my dream here at Auburn University. Growing up, my goal was to make it to college and to do something special as an athlete. At Auburn, I became a man. I was so blessed to have coaches who pushed me to new heights, instilled toughness, and a will to win that I never knew existed until then. I believe in the Auburn creed and the commitment, work and hard work. Auburn set me on a path to my Hall of Fame career that resulted from hard work, dedication, and commitment. I learned there, and I'll say it again, there are no shortcuts to success, and I carry that lesson with me today. I'm especially honored to join the elite company of all those Auburn greats who have statues on this campus. You know, Bo Jackson, Pat Sullivan, Charles Barkley, and Cam Newton. I may be the first and only baseball player from the SEC in the Hall of Fame, but I won't be the last. And I mean that. So guys, set your goals high. I look forward to cheering and welcoming others who can carry out this legacy. And I applaud all the coaches before me, after me, and right now, Butch Thompson for his leadership and regaining Auburn's prestige on the diamond. I think my favorite coach here did his best job on the field, but getting to the College World Series was one of my dreams here at Auburn University. We didn't get there, and it was a tough day of my life. I mean, I cried for hours down in Tallahassee when we didn't get there. That was one of the things that hurt me in life, that we didn't make it with that great team. But we were great. I just want to say, there's so many people to thank here today, and I don't want to forget anybody, and I can't forget where it started. Where's Bobby Howard? There he is, Coach Bobby Howard. I didn't know if I really wanted to play baseball. Football was a culture of Columbus, Georgia, and everyone said, your side, you're gonna play football. I love football, I was good at it, but for some reason, when I walked in that baseball field, I became great at it, and that man pushed me into new heights. I'll be honest with you, many days I wanted to quit, because his baseball practices were tougher than football practices, and that's just what it was. My Auburn coaches, Baird, Steve Renfro, and Tom Thayer. They molded my skills and put me in a position to succeed, both here at Auburn and in the big leagues, because you were a thinker. And that's one thing about Coach Baird. He talked about the next level to me all the time, and he prepared me mentally for what I had to be better at. So thank you for that, Coach. I owe so much to all of them, and I just want to say thank you. Starting from Coach Dye, who came to Columbus, Georgia, sat in my mom's kitchen, and ate my mom's cooking. And I said to myself, this is a passionate coach. I wish he was here today because, yes, he pushed me to go to baseball. Brought me as a football player, and he told me, we're deep, 4 deep at every position. We're in a whirlwind right now in football at Auburn University. We're gonna be okay. I'm gonna keep you on football scholarship, but you're gonna play baseball. I see something I've never seen in a baseball player that can hit the average power, scoring, everything. He said, yes, I think you can go to the NFL, maybe play 3-4 years, but I think you can make a baseball career. And he was right. And so thankful of that for a football coach. I always thought I owed him something to get back on that field. And he said, no, I want you to play baseball. Also, there's a few other people I want to, thank who's no longer here. But I want to just say thank you to President Roberts for making this happen and the Board of Trustees. Thank you for making this happen. But I also got to say thank you to Alan Green, who's no longer here, and Coach Thompson. They came up a year ago to Chicago and surprised me with this and said, we're going to move forward with this. And I was like, whoa. So I got to know these guys. So that's 3 80s in a row I've gotten to know. Jay Jacobs, Alan Green, and John, I knew you before both of those guys. So it's a pleasure. So I want to keep these short because, Coach Baird said it all. We set this day off, but it was incredible. Love you, Coach. I'm so glad you showed up for me today. This is amazing. I just want to say thank you to my family, my lovely wife, Megan, who is the anchor of my life the last 24 years. Has made me a better person, and I love you dearly. To my oldest son, Sterling, stand up. This guy would have been one hell of an athlete, but unfortunately, he had to play when I was first in the major leagues. Like the light was so bright that he couldn't even walk down the street and attempt to play ball. It was tough. So I love him. He's one hell of a businessman now, one of the best. And I should listen to him a lot more because he has a lot to say and a lot of great advice. So, thank you, son. My oldest daughter, Sloan, who's very successful, stand up. Yes, please. Another brain here. I started doing TV. She's a TV producer. She's helped me a lot. I never listened. I could be a lot better. But I want to thank you too, dear. Thank you so much. Love you. Sydney Blake, stand up, please. I know. Another brainiac who's doing so well in LA and Hollywood with our marketing. Yes, you're doing a wonderful job, and you know it. And thank you for everything. And I definitely don't listen to you because you're the baby of the first batch, so it's tough. Frank III, stand up. This is the athlete of my family. He's, I hate to brag on him, but I think he's gonna be better than me. He's a Gold Glove first baseman already. He can hit all over the field. He's very patient. He's at IMG Academy right now. He's 8th grade, playing with the junior varsity team. And he's holding his own with 10th, 11th graders, so proud of you. Ashley Kate, my little cutie pie. She's the mother of our house. She's 11 going on 25, so love you dearly. And whatever you do in life, I know it's gonna be very successful. Love you, beautiful. And this guy, Chase Elwood, this guy here, he's been there before. He's 6 years old, and every teacher that's had him, they all say the same. Where did you find this kid? He's definitely 6 on 30. He's the smartest one in this household, and it's crazy. It's crazy scary. Love you, buddy, and one hell of a little athlete, too. There's a few people who are not with me anymore. My father, Frank Thomas Sr., who pushed me into New Heights. During my Auburn days, he was here from Columbus, driving to practice, driving to games. So it got to the point, I'm like, Dad, please just stay home. Let me grow up a little bit. But he was my coach, and he was tough on me all the time, and I love that man. God bless him. I don't know if you saw my Hall of Fame speech. I couldn't stop crying because he pushed me to the point of Quentin knows. Quentin got a taste of my dad when we first got here at Auburn. He was here every day. He was my biggest fan, biggest coach. So him and my mother, Charlie Mae Thomas, I'm so proud of what they did for me and really set me on the right path in life. I missed them dearly, and just want to say thanks to my parents. And I lost someone else close to me. I know Lee Mark's here, but I lost my other college roommate, Craig Ogletree, who was with me. He passed away almost 2 years now in the COVID era. One big warrior, you guys know him here, he was here a lot. I want to thank all of them because they helped mold me who I am, and I'm proud of everyone. Frank Bumstead has handled my life since 1992. I'm so happy to see him here. He's done a lot of great things for me. I'm hard-headed, but he's still with me such a long time. I love you like a father, you know that, Frank. Thank you so much. And in closing, I just want to say War Eagle, and today is the day that I should get a statue because people say, Frank, whatever going to happen? It happened when it happens. And today is the right, perfect day. And I want to thank the Auburn family for doing this for me. And I told you right now, I'm so humble, I'm thankful, and God is good, and I'm so proud of this moment. Thank you all, Thank you for coming out, and war damn Eagle.
In closing, we're about to move outside, but in closing, I just want to say, especially to Frank's children, a lot of you have heard Coach Dye's name continually come up. And I think part of the reason that is and Frank knows this, and those of us that got to be around Coach Dye, is he truly loved these student athletes, unlike, any coach I've ever been around. And he's known for being such a hard worker, but that's how I think he was able to work the players so hard that he truly, truly, truly loves the players. He loved Frank. And I can promise you, there's just something about Auburn where there's a lot of love. And I promise you, Auburn loves your dad and will forever. And so at this time, we're going to ask Frank and his family, they're going to exit this direction. They're going to go out to unveil the statue. So if we can just give them a little time until we can get them out. And then, I don't think it's raining too hard out there. Yeah, we got a window, yeah. So there are stairs over here on this end that you can slip out if some of you want to try to get out. You can also follow the baseball team right here to go out as we unveil the statue. So that will conclude our program.